another act that has been in news quite a bit off late also, and because of the Tiruchendurai issue, that's the Waqf Act. All right. So can you take us through the details about this? Again, the same origin, and why was it brought into life in the first place?
I went through the Wakf Act this Monday. For the first time, I got the act, and I have started reading it. I must say that on first blush, that it is not as horrible or as horrendous as it is made out in the public domain.
Interesting.
Okay. I have been consulting some lawyers also who are veterans in the field of civil side. So I belong to basically the economic criminal side, which is basically on arrest on PMLAs and other side. So I have gone into this act, and we have had some discussion with some of my very learned and senior respected friends. First blush is that it is not as draconian as it is made out. The Wakf will come and say that this is my property, you will have to wait. No such thing. But this all provided the Wakf has got documents. And how do you answer somebody who says this is your property? You have to countervail with your own evidences, your own property documents, your own say, for example, today I learned from some people in the Vadapani temple. I wanted to know how the temple was built. It belonged to probably a Nayakar who was built by a Chettiar, aided by some Mudaliar or somebody. He was telling me. So it was a very fascinating, to know that how this temple was actually, the land was donated by somebody whose house was there. And from there, this temple Vadapani temple has grown into what it is today. So if you take Tiruchendurai, where some of my friends like JB Sriram are in direct touch with me, and I had a Zoom call some last Sunday, probably around this time we had a Zoom call. And I wanted to understand from them. Some of them are staying there for 60, 70 years. And they have seen their parents give this land to them, and they are inhabitants, and they are third, fourth, fifth generation of people living in that temple, in that village. And as far as the temple goes, these people say that this is around 1200 to 1500 years old temple. Not only predates arrival of Islam in India, predates Islam itself. So, and these are all Sthala Puranam go back to the date where some great Savant has mentioned it in his poem. That Tiruchendurai temple, Chandrasekhara Swami, they have mentioned it in some song or whatever.
Yeah.
So those histories are also available. So now, how this will pan out, this suddenly seems to be emerging as a pan-India contagion. In 2020, we had this coronavirus, and now we are having this Wakf virus. So we need to find out what exactly is this issue. And to be very frank, I have talked to one good Muslim friend of mine, and he was dismissive. He says, this cannot be Wakf. Idea of Wakf, or this would never have been done unless we have very clear documented things. We would have gone, we would have said, and we would have put a mutawali. We would have said that mutawali, once he expires or he runs away, we would have got immediately some other mutawali. So it cannot be that 50, 80 years a Wakf property is left unattended, becomes a Poromboku property, occupied by a third party, then suddenly, like Ripu and Winkle, they wake up after 50, 60 years, they come back and say, please give me this and we want to go back. No, that is never the intention of any legislation. So, I don't think that this will be having such dramatic consequences as people fear. But this is a long haul. This is my preliminary view. We will refine our view because all facts are not before me today. So I must say also, all facts are not. So if the Wakf comes and says that, look, Tiruchendurai, this is the document wherein so-and-so has given this, registered with this, then how did subsequent registrations happen? How did people get patta, chitta, adangal, How did they get encumbrance certificate? How did the banks give loan? How did so many things happen? How people fought in courts on disputes? How did the court resolve the disputes on a land which is not theirs? There will be definitely some brothers fighting, brother and sister fighting for a property. Now, court should have said it belongs to X or Y. Now, how did the courts come to a conclusion this land is this, X or Y, when this land belonged to neither, and it was basically a Waqf property? So these are all things that we need to actually document. So, and this is spread over 600, 800 acres in Tiruchendurai. But Tiruchendurai is not a, Tiruchendurai for some reason, I don't know, has hit the national headlines. But there are people who report from Coimbatore, Erode, Chenji, even Kambam, Teni, that this is what is happening. And some say that they have been fighting for years also on this. So I'm really flabbergasted that but one thing is certain, that the tribunal, the Waqf, once it says this is my property, you have to go to the tribunal, and the words of the tribunal are final. But mercifully, the Waqf also tried to do similar things to the Taj Mahal, and they wanted to usurp the Taj Mahal, and the courts would have nothing of it. Likewise, I am told in one judgment, though I have not got the judgment, the Supreme Court said that, look, the tribunal can be the final word, but we are the final in so far as law is concerned. So 142, Article 142 is there. That will take care of any such contingencies. I think we can go on a writ to the High Courts and the Supreme Court. There are legal avenues. It's not frightening as it's made out. But yes, it is worrying that this provides a new theater of fault line between the two communities. Now, there are SC/ST lands also, the lands which have been given to SC/ST community, which you cannot take back. They cannot sell or something like that. There is some provision in Tamil Nadu. Now, whether those type of lands are involved also have to be seen, whether the Waqf has taken cognizance of those lands, how the registrar has been functioning. So it's a huge conundrum for legal pundits, and they are all worried as to how this has happened and how this is happening. But my view is both the communities must come together and settle this quickly and without allowing it to fester for too long.
Absolutely. And even when it comes to the tribunal, is it right that the tribunal has to be again presided over by the Muslim community, or how does that work?
Unfortunately, yes. See, the whole thing is the way the Waqf board is there. So the Waqf board has Muslims, the Waqf tribunal seems to have only Muslims, and Waqf board is the judge, jury, prosecutor. The Waqf tribunal has got Muslim, once it's a tribunal member, I wouldn't worry about whether it's a Muslim member or a Hindu member. But the question is whether the evidence is what you can lead. Okay, we don't go to the court looking at the caste of the community denomination of the judge, and no lawyer should do it. But what is important is what is the evidence that we are able to marshal. And that I believe that overwhelmingly, it looks like the Tiruchendurai case on first blush favors the locals overwhelmingly. Because what the other side has given is only a notice to the registrar stating that the entire Tiruchendurai village, without giving any survey number, could be there is one survey number which has a backing. Now, if the entire village, it is possible that somebody has given half an acre to Waqf, in which case it is acceptable. So the problem gets sorted out immediately. But if the Waqf was given, say, in 1975 to somebody, and the entire village, it's like S.V. Shekhar's, the S.V. Shekhar drama. He would say, I just now sold Egmore. Do you want the central? So it could be a classic case like that. Let us see what happens.
Yeah, surely. Why I ask the tribunal question is because in some channels this has been discussed. Okay, how come it's just one-sided? All right, anybody can claim anything one day suddenly, and then tribunal is also there and then will justice be done? How is this going to work? So that's why I asked this question.
Anand, I wouldn't look at it as theirs versus us.
Ah.
It is their evidence versus our evidence.
Absolutely.
As simple as that. And if evidence is coming and they prove that there is a valid Waqf, meaning some sort of a gift given by somebody to for Muslim. So they also have to explain. The Waqf board has also to explain what happened to the Mutawalli, why the Mutawalli is absent, and the law is also to look into it that once a particular land given for a Waqf where the Mutawalli is absent for say 15 years, 30 years, 75 years, can the Waqf board, though it may be in perpetuity, the Waqf is always in perpetuity, but does that mean that you don't do anything? You allow somebody to occupy it and carry on with their business, and then you wake up and then say that you want to reclaim. Whether the Wakf Act was intended for such purposes. In fact, if you read the Wakf Act, the tribunal and the Wakf board are primarily to look at whether it's a Shia Wakf or a Sunni Wakf.
Oh.
Okay, that was the basic idea with which the Wakf law was created. But unfortunately, in the last 15 days, it has suddenly turned out in the Hindu versus Muslim.
Got it.
Which the Wakf board is supposed to decide whether the property is of the Muslim or the Hindu, which was never the intention of that. So if you look back, why the tribunal is predominantly Muslim is the framers of the law would have conceived only of a dispute between a Shia Wakf and a Sunni Wakf. They would not have thought whether a Chandrasekhara Swami temple would be a Wakf property. And whether Lord Chandrasekhara is part of the Muslim, architecture. Mm-hmm. So this is something that we also need to give it to the framers. That is why they have allowed this to happen.
Understood. So what you're saying is, all this should be backed by documentation anyways. There has to be evidence. Nobody can just take away a property without any evidence anyways, right? So that's where it all ends and stops.
Yeah, and till date, both, of course, the people who are inside the document are claiming that they have properties of 1950s, and they show the Tamil which is written in those times. So you can see the documents with the Tamil. Those of you who would have seen the Indian movie, Kamal Hassan writes a Tamil in a particular font, which is not practiced now because they are old timers. And those Tamil fonts are clearly visible because it was never typed. It was handwritten in those times. So some documents I saw that it had those distinct handwriting of those times. Be that as it may, the Wakf board is also not a fool. When they have sent this to the registrar, they are backed by their own lawyers. They must be also scrutinizing documents. They are not here to create mischief and hit and run legal battles. So they must also have some documentation, which I don't have at this point in time. So first thing is, let us take Tiruchendurai as a classical case. We don't know whether the entire, because they have not put any survey number. So if it is half a survey number, half an acre of survey or quarter acre survey, I think probably then the theatre of war is not the village, but just the small portion of the village. Now, if they claim the entire village, now that's going to be a different ballgame. But if they claim, say, half an acre or a quarter acre, that too has to be backed by evidence. I'm not saying that, supposing it is my house, definitely I will fight tooth and nail. But it will not be the battle of the village. It becomes a very privatized battle of a particular person. Could be there is some truth in the Wakf board. Could be there is truth of the person who is occupying. Again, that boils down to the documentation.
Makes sense. Very clear, sir. All right. Thank you so much, sir, for your time today.
Thank you.